Welcome everybody. It's episode 424 of the SevereMMA podcast. My name is Sean Sheehan, joined today by the Dara O'Donovan of Irish MMA Media, Graeme McDonald. We talk about a massive weekend in the world of mixed martial arts. There were so many fights, world MMA, Irish MMA, the whole lot. So lots to get into. Before we get into all of that though, cannonballs. This summer is not about the size of those cannonballs. It's about making a splash with our friends at Manscaped. Prep for barbecue season by making sure your grill master has the hottest dogs this summer has ever seen. When you're at a cookout, let the meat speak for itself with Manscaped's Performance Package 4.0. It's time to get ready and not sweaty by going to manscaped.com and using the promo code SevereMMA for 20% off and free shipping. And if you aren't using Manscaped products, you really should be. I know my guy Patrick got one the other day and he's absolutely swearing by it. Just absolutely brilliant. And if you want to start off somewhere, you want to get everything, you can get the Performance Package 4.0. Just guaranteed for mouth-watering treats at the party. They've built your ultimate bundle for your summer grooming. Starts off with that Lawnmower 4.0. It's a cutting-edge ceramic blade used to reduce grooming accidents, thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. It also has a 7,000 RPM motor, multifunction on and off switch, so you can engage travel lock, and has a 4,000K LED spotlight on it as well for a more precise shave. Waterproof. You can use it in the pool, shower, or wherever you want to use it. Now that you can feel safe wearing a low-cut swimsuit without any stranglers peeking out, use the liquid formulations. I swear by these, are absolutely brilliant. Crop Preserver to start off your day, and the Crop Reviver as well, which is a spray to keep your freshness growing throughout the lovely summer day. Manscaped also threw in 2 free gifts: this travel bag, which I use absolutely all the time whenever I'm traveling. I know there's MMA events coming up, I use that, and the boxers as well. Plus, if you're wearing sandals and you want to get your toenails fixed, I actually used this yesterday and it's brilliant. I genuinely mean the Shears 2.0. It's a luxury nail grooming kit, but it's brilliant. You have to get this. It includes stainless steel cutters, tweezers, and grooming scissors. Those grooming scissors are actually really good as well. It's all really good. That package, honestly, I swear by that. I use it all the time. And as a treat, you should add in some crop mops to your order as well. They're really good. I have a load of them. A moist towelette made specifically for your beach balls. It's the best midday refresher to stop your popsicle from melting. So any or all of that, you can get free shipping and 20% off with the code SevereMMA at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com using the code SevereMMA. Manscaped, the perfect way to get your patty sizzling this summer. This episode as well, lads, it's also brought to you by our friends over at Caldera Lab. And we all know that first impressions matter. There's no two ways around that. What's the first thing someone notices about you? It's your face, your skin. And you need to be ready for that. And it's time to put your best face forward. How do you do that? By adding a skincare routine to your routine. And you know what? It's not hard. You just don't have the right tools until right now. Clinically proven to reduce wrinkles, fine lines, and signs of aging, Caldera Lab is the leader in men's skincare and is here to save the day. Use our exclusive code SevereMMA. It's the code SevereMMA over here, over calderalab.com, and you will get 20% off their best products. I've been using it now for a while, and it's really good. It's good during the summer too as well. Nice little cooling, an added cooling, I would say, to the old face before you get the day going. And what I would suggest you start off with is the regimen. It's dedicated for men, and we know skincare is a highly female-driven, I suppose, world. And what Caldera Lab have done with the regimen is made men's skincare easier. In that bundle, you have the clean slate, the base layer, and the good. The clean slate obviously is to start your day, leaves everything, washed and fresh. The base layer is your daily moisturizer that hydrates your skin and absorbs it fast, leaving you with a matte finish. so that you can start your day confidently. And the good is your go-to at night before you go to bed. It's a multifunctional serum that helps your skin look tighter and smoother, as well as helps reduce the visibility of wrinkles and fine lines. In every drop of serum, there are 3.4 million antioxidant units protecting your skin. Want to know what that means? Well, I have a clue, but must be good though, yeah, isn't it? Yeah, it'd be great. They even have an eye serum called the Icon as well. It addresses as we've mentioned before, the 3 most common skin concerns around the eye: the fine lines, the dark circles, and the puffiness. Caldera Lab is made with top tier ingredients and is a great addition to your daily routine. Takes minute and a half, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, not a lot long. And it's here to reduce your wrinkles, fine lines, and signs of aging. And that's that. So get 20% off with our code SevereMMA at calderalab.com. That's 20% off at calderalab.com by using the code SevereMMA. Caldera Lab, CALDERALAB.com. SevereMMA, SevereMMA. Jump into skin first impression royalty with Caldera Lab. Right, Graeme, let's get straight into it, I suppose. And what a card, what a weekend of sport. It was just one of those epics, really, wasn't it? As well, I think obviously the Limerick hurling was on and all of that, and I feel like, and I know you'll probably be the same, it's like you're sitting there on a Saturday and Sunday and like, what's going on? There's no Premier League on. It's kind of a bit boring. It's been a few weeks, it's been enough weeks now with no like big sport on, or not enough big sport on. When you get a day like I had anyway, maybe it was a little bit different for you, where I had the big evening, we had the PFL coming on after the hurling, or kind of in the middle of the hurling, and then we had the massive UFC 290 card. It was a refreshing, stressful, magic, brilliant day of sport. And from sitting in front of the TV from 6 o'clock in the evening until about 7 o'clock in the morning, it was a good 13 hours. Graeme, did you enjoy your evening of sport? I assume you did after that brilliant card anyway.
Yeah, I didn't watch any of the Limerick hurling, but the rest of it, yeah, the PFL I really enjoyed, and the UFC obviously was a brilliant card as well. Especially the top few fights were very interesting. A lot of jeopardy going on, a lot of back and forth, and just an overall brilliant card. And a bit of controversy as always. Kind of the UFC 290 card kind of had everything, and the PFL card obviously went really well for John Mitchell, Franz, and Dylan Chuk went through to the next round. Obviously, we'll talk about that a bit more later. So it was a good day for the Irish. It was a good day for you with the Limerick, and it was a good day for the UFC with a brilliant pay-per-view card. Indeed
it was. There's some people calling this the greatest pay-per-view of all time. Some people are calling it one of the best in years. And I'm very bad at remembering like full cards. I'd have to like have it shown in front of me. I remember UFC 166 was a great card. I think someone was saying UFC 159 was a great card as well. But this, look, if it's not the best, it has to be right up there. There was it broke the record for sub 1 minute finishes with 4. We had 2 epic title fights with a massive shock with, the second best fighter in his division losing for the first time in years in non-title fights, I suppose. We had a couple of other big upsets. We had a massive prospect shown something different. We had a legend retiring in the most brilliant way possible, and then the undercard was absolutely brilliant as well. So sometimes we come on here, and a lot of the time we come on this card, there's no wah, and after this one, it's absolutely epic, and it was enthralling and brilliant the whole way.
It's not often people imitate themselves so well. I don't know.
That was a good one. No, I'll give you that one. But let's get into it, I suppose, and let's start at the main event. Alexander Volkanovski versus Yair Rodriguez. I was very, very intrigued coming into this one to see how it would work. And do you know what? Usually in high level fights like this, we see something different to what we were expecting, but early we really didn't. There was pressure by Volkanovski while he was switching stances, a big takedown early, lots of ground and pound, Yair trying his best to get back up and all of that, going for a few submissions, but basically kind of getting bursted up on the ground. Although, Yair was the one that kind of bursted him up. What did you think of the early goings of that fight, Graeme? It all went Volkanovski early, didn't it?
Yeah, once he kind of got the takedown, it was all Volkanovski. I think Volkanovski might have had a previous cut that opened up. I think that was maybe something like that going on, but the elbows that he was landing, ground and pound elbows, were just sharp and mean. We see guys kind of flurrying and ground and pound, but Volkanovski was taking his time, picking the moments and landing hard, and when he had him up against the cage, he landed a series of them. I can't even remember if that was the same round or the second round, but yeah, he was patient on the feet. He kept changing stances, giving Yair different looks. And when Yair was throwing, Volkanovski was making a miss, or even when he was landing, Volkanovski was doing a great job of being on the back foot, kind of moving away as the strike was landing, just to take most of the sting out of it. He's just a master. He's just like, I expect him to go in there and take Yair down and, take some of the pop out of his movement on the feet and stuff. But he's just such an all-round, really well-rounded, brilliant technician. And, Yair Rodriguez is a brilliant fighter, has loads of tools, but if you don't mind your P's and Q's, you're going to eat big shots against Volkanovski. And, he just has such a great fight IQ. He can figure it out so quickly. Yair, I don't think he underperformed or anything. I just think it's just such a hard matchup for him. And if Volkanovski's in that form, it's going to be extremely hard to beat him.
Like, Yair looked like he underperformed, didn't he? Like, if you're
I was kind of thinking that, but did he though? Really?
I don't think he did. That's what I was just about to say. Like, it's Volkanovski making him do that. Like, I was watching a part of it in the second round, and it started the third as well. Now, it did change a little bit in the third, and we'll get to that in a second. But like, he wasn't circling, he wasn't doing his outside movement, he wasn't moving in and out in any way, shape or form. It's like, this is not Yair Rodriguez. And that happened like almost immediately once the second round started. Obviously the first round we had 90 seconds of it, but then we had the takedown and the rest of the fight on the ground in the first round. But like, Volkanovski had beaten him so badly to the punch, really, but to the tactical control of the fight in terms of stopping his circling by like, and why do you switch stances? You switch stances so that you can cut him off to a large extent. You switch stances for lots of different reasons, and someone smarter than me would be able to explain, but to change the looks in terms of offensively and defensively, so he doesn't know what's coming in terms of what you're hitting him with, but then not being able to kind of pick you off. But I think when he switched to this orthodox stance and he was able to throw the left hook to stop him going right, and when he was, and vice versa, obviously to stop him going left when he was out of the southpaw stance, but then like the leg kicks as well, he didn't throw too many of them, but they were enough to kind of stop the circle. And by the time the second round came, my first bit of notes here is Yair not circling enough. And like, Yair, if you go back and watch that second round, it was like a boxing match in terms of where they were located. Now, Yair was kicking from there and all of that, but and especially in the third round, like, Volkanovski did get a takedown. I thought Yair actually hit him really hard with a right hand in that second round. Volkanovski got a takedown, but that right hand obviously mattered for very little because of that takedown. There was big ground and pound and everything like that. And that ground and pound, Graeme, the fact that he kind of almost kept getting up but then getting taken down again, almost gotten head and arm choked, and it was the first round he almost got head and arm choked, but up and down all the time throughout the second. It was a Volkanovski elbow this time that cut Yair. And Yair, just the signs at the end of that second round weren't great from Yair, Graeme, were they? It was just very tough to look at him, and the body language that was coming from him wasn't great at that stage, was it?
Yeah, I think he'd given like a lot of explosion, he tried everything to get back up, and as you said, every time he was nearly getting back up, Volkanovski would either like just easily take him back down or land a big shot and a flurry and get a better position or keep a strong position and keep Yair on his back. So I think it was kind of, I got the impression that he was kind of thinking, yeah, this isn't going my way. I'm not going to be able to win this. I'm not going to be able to get back up when I get taken down, and I'm getting hit with really big shots here. And Volkanovski just was relentless. He stuck to the game plan really well, which he always does. I've talked about it in the past, and we kind of maybe a broken record a bit here, but I still think Volkanovski's underrated about how much of a fight IQ and
100%.
technician he is all around. You know, we don't see him mix in like takedowns and submission attempts as much as, you know, he could if he wanted to, but he plays it safe, you know, in a way. You and me talk about it all the time, you know, going to passing guard and getting into mount and stuff it's great and all, it looks great and the crowd will cheer, but you have much more of a chance of losing the position. We see it time and time again, and Volkanovski's just too smart for all that stuff, and he just keeps you under there and keeps just beating on you and just beats the fight out of you.
Yeah, I honestly, and maybe it's maybe a speaker's corner or a longer discussion, I think passing in MMA should be like almost dead in the water. Like, unless you're like a really good armbar specialist or something like that, or unless you
need a finish and you're behind. And
exactly.
You know.
You've had an arm choke set up or something like that, and you need to pass to side control. Other than that, like, look at Khabib. He was the greatest ever, and he loved to be in half guard all the time. It's a way better, more controlled position. And you're right on Volkanovski as well. Like, speaking of speaker's corner, myself and Harry did one a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about tactics and the fact that Volkanovski, and you know, not just tactics, but planning, and like planning before the fight, for the fight, planning in the fight, adjusting your tactics in the fight, but also, like, you know, if you're a fighter, right? If you're Conor McGregor, your plan is to come out and land the big left hook. If you're Khabib, your plan is to come out and take someone down. I think it's becoming more rare that someone has a variety of plans in MMA. You know, now, like, if you're a good or well-rounded MMA fighter and you're fighting, you know, I don't know, a boxer, okay, you're going to take him down. But you get what I mean? Like, if it's a pretty even fight at the very top level, Volkanovski's one of those guys. And maybe, you know, this is an example of just what I said there, but he can do it all, as you were mentioning, Graeme. Like, he has it all in his arsenal. And, you know, I said it during the week, he's like a snooker player setting up a 1-4-7. Like, there's just 5 shots planned. He knows what's coming next. He knows what he's doing next. He knows if he throws this shot, that shot, and that shot, that it's going to, you know, land a big shot at the end, set up a takedown, put his opponent in position. He doesn't want to go for the next 5 shots to land something. He's just like, he's a master. And like I said it before, that he's so smart and so good, we don't understand how good he is. Like, I truly believe that. I think Demetrius Johnson had a little bit of the same sort of thing. He's absolutely brilliant. And Yair Rodriguez didn't understand what he was doing, like, because as I said again, and we talked about the first and the second, but in the third round, like, Yair was kicking well from the outside and he was ahead, and I have in my notes here, Yair's getting confident. Like, he hit Volkanovski hard at one, and, you know, there was he was getting into range. There was that head clash. Volkanovski slipped and they clashed heads, but after that, like, okay, Yair's getting going, he's getting confident, he's landing, he's like, bang, massive right hand, bang, finished, over. Like, it's almost as if Yair changing up his game because of what Volkanovski had done for him, had him in like this kind of frozen position where Volkanovski was like, okay, you're playing my game now, I'm just going to win this fight, and look, we have kind of an agreement here, I'm going to take it easy. And then Yair started fighting his own fighting and goes, oh yeah, well, this was what I planned for. Oh, you're going to do this again? Oh, okay, I'll just knock you out. That's exactly what happened. Did you feel a bit of that?
How much do you think the headbutt actually played into, you know, Yair's kind of, when it resumed, his kind of style, that his what would you call it, his attack plan? He took a big shot with the head, like it snapped his head. It was pretty big, and he did take about a minute or something, maybe even less, but that was a pretty big shot, and maybe that kind of had him a bit, out of the game plan. I don't know. Maybe it played into Volkanovski's hands a bit. I think it was a matter of time anyway for Volkanovski, but I could see why Yair's side might have a bit of a grievance there.
I think if Yair hadn't already been doing that before the clash of heads, I would say yes, but he was, like, I've written in my notes here, Yair is in the pocket but kicking well, and he's ahead, and he's slightly hurt Volk one, and that's before the head clash. So it's not as if he wasn't kind of coming on in the third round, and he started, like, he was fighting better. It's not that like he came out and he was making big mistakes or anything like that. He was fighting more of his game plan. It was just that Volkanovski was prepared for that game plan, from the very start. He worked with it easily early, but then he had a takedown plan for it, but a stand-up plan for it. Like, did the clash of heads matter? Absolutely. But he did, as you said, he did take the minute, he did take the time. Things like that always change the fight a little bit, but I don't think it made a massive difference. Like, to go to an example in the hurling yesterday, like the Limerick were losing and the goalie went down for a minute. Everyone's like, oh, he's slowing down the play, he's stopping the momentum. Oh, that changed again. Like, Limerick won by 9 points. A goalie lying down for 35 seconds it wouldn't change that. Like a head clash.
Well, like momentum. If there's, for example, you're under the cosh for several minutes, something like that does break the momentum. And like let's say Alex was on the verge of finishing Yair and they kind of clashed heads and the ref stopped it. That would it would be a different circumstance. So I think like in certain circumstances, we see in football like a team will be under the cosh and they'll just a couple of fake injuries, get the physios on, waste a few minutes, kind of get the game plan from the coaches back onto the field. Like it definitely is circumstances where sure, it can break the momentum.
But if you're good enough and you're going to win, you'll win. Like, I firmly believe that. Like, as someone who follows the best team in my sport, I know that. Like, it's because people do it to Limerick all the time. And, like, I'm sure, Man City or whoever the best NFL team is, like, teams always try and do these things. No, this is a different circumstance here. No one tried to do this. This wasn't, like, he literally slipped. If people go back and watch it, he slipped and fell into the head clash.
And Yair's head kind of came down into Volkanovski's, or not his head, but the side of his face. So it was definitely unfortunate more than, like, I wouldn't put any blame on Volkanovski.
No, 100%. So, did it have an effect? Yeah, a little bit, but I don't think it had a major effect. Like, I didn't see it affecting the way Yair fought in any way, and it's just it was coincidental that it happened just before the knockdown. I think. What did you think of that finish? Like, it almost felt like Volkanovski was tying with him a little bit because, like, he as I said, he kind of played with him when he was playing with him. And then when Yair was like, all right, do you know what it reminded me of? And this is a bad example, but when Floyd fought Tinchin, and Floyd's, this is an exhibition, I'll jab you around. Then Tinchin hit him once hard, and then Floyd just knocks him the fuck out. It felt like there was a little bit of that in this here. Now, obviously, I'm not saying this is an exhibition or it was easy as that or anything. I have more respect for both of them than that, but the right hand ended, Graeme, like switching stances again, big right hook, and that was that. Like, Volkanovski not only has the power, the technique and the wrestling and the intelligence, he has the power too, doesn't he? Like, what can you do against Volkanovski? It's impossible, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it was Volkanovski. I don't think he was toying with him. I think he just had respect for Yair's tools and how he can land something out of nowhere big, that you don't see coming, and he's got to be careful. And once he kind of, felt how big the right hook he landed was, and kind of Yair's reaction, he smelled blood and went in for the kill. And maybe the flurry at the end was a bit, un-Volkanovski. He didn't really pick his shots. He just flurried, but I think he knew that Yair was kind of, done. He knew that he was kind of wilting and that the ref was getting close and things like that. So it's kind of maybe when the ref's getting that close, you just keep flurrying instead of picking your shots. But usually, you'd see Volkanovski be a bit more selective in his shots at the end. But either way, he got the job done. And I think that most of that was down to Yair's reaction to the shots and the fact that I think he knew that the fight was over at that stage, and Volkanovski knew if he just flurried that it was over, and Yair wasn't complaining afterwards. He knew he was beat.
Yeah, indeed. It was an epic performance. I struggled. We talked maybe a little bit at the start saying, did Yair turn up? He was beaten in the first 90 seconds, and I think he turned up in the third round. And then he was knocked out. So it's very, like, he was just beaten by the better guy. I don't think he underperformed necessarily or anything like that. It's just Volkanovski performed to the best of the best. Like literally to the best of the best. And it's funny because like we could talk about who's next, and maybe it's Ilia Topuria, but Volkanovski is getting surgery and all that, so maybe that's a discussion for further down the line, maybe the lightweight belt and all. One thing I just want to throw at you here, like I was thinking last night and I tweeted it out, I think Volkanovski is the second best fighter I've ever seen. Like after Demetrius, who's still like untouched as the greatest of all time in my opinion.
Would Jones be up there? Does it play in like the kind of outside of the cage stuff with John Jones?
No, I'm just talking about in the cage itself, right?
Yeah, you wouldn't have John Jones in there with him?
I wouldn't have him in the conversation, to be honest. Like,
really?
the level of technique and the level of ability, like, and it's a pound for pounding as well. It's very unfair.
Yeah, okay.
It's very unfair. Like, the smaller weight classes absolutely do have an advantage, and
yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's a lot easier to do what they're doing at that weight than what John Jones is doing.
If we had a heavyweight doing what they're doing, they'd be the greatest phenom we've ever seen. Like, so it is very, 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 it's very bad enough. But the secondary point to that is, right, I saw Luke Thomas did a thing this week, and look, everyone has done it at this stage, and we've been asked about it before. Who's the best featherweight of all time? Because that's a funny one, right? Because I've just said Volkanovski is the second best fighter I've ever seen. But still, if you ask me who's the best featherweight of all time, I'm like, oh, well, there's kind of 4 good featherweights there. And I tweeted during the week, it's unclear. But I think it's maybe becoming more clear, like what Volkanovski has done, destroying Max the last time, beating him the times before, beating Aldo, beating Mendez, beating Yair, beating everyone. Kind of has to be him. Like, I know Max had a great run, Aldo had a great run, and obviously he, by the time the other 3 lads came, he was a little bit older, I suppose.
You're talking UFC only, not WEC.
Yeah, but no, but WEC as well. We can talk it all. Like, and obviously Conor knocked out Aldo, and he beat Max Holloway as well a little bit earlier in his career. He has to be up there, but like.
And Eddie Alvarez, he moved up the weight. If you're talking pound for pound, people moving up weight and capturing the belt, I suppose, for speed.
Well, let's just featherweight for the moment. Like,
just featherweight.
Yeah. I think it's Volkanovski. It's weird because like Aldo is my initial one, but like Aldo has lost to the other 3, hasn't he? Yeah, he has. Like, it's
if Aldo had have retired before. If he just had retired on top before he got knocked out by Conor, would he be considered the best ever at featherweight? Maybe,
but he probably would because he had a long reign. Like that question could be asked for Habib as well, but I think everyone feels like Habib retired like too early. Like Habib probably retired 10 fights too early. Never mind like 5 or 6 title fights.
Habib will be remembered better than if he had have stayed on and maybe lost a couple of fights here or there as he got older.
Not as a divisional great, I don't think. Like when people are talking about the greatest of all time, like Habib's never mentioned. Even though he was so dominant and was undefeated and all, but he just doesn't have that long streak to put himself in that conversation, whereas Aldo does. He's undefeated for 9 years and everything like that. And a lot of people, even though like Aldo, when McGregor knocked out Aldo, he wasn't finished. Like he went on and destroyed Frankie Edgar after that, and he beat Jeremy Stevens, and he beat another fighter, and he went down to 135, and he had a good run. Got to a title fight there, and was back at another title fight after that. So Aldo was by no means finished in, but like MMA had kind of moved on an awful lot. He had to go down to 135. Those big 145ers were an issue for him. Like, look at the size of McGregor now, like, and he was fighting him. Look at the size of Holloway and others as well. I don't think that should take away from what he did before that, and I don't think it does. Like, it's one of those discussions, right, that we have to have a nuanced discussion about it, or else we'll just say, oh, well, Conor knocked him out, but what are you fucking talking about? How can Aldo in 13 seconds, lad?
It's all about opinion. It is, yeah. If you have, a side, you can make a valid argument for 100%. Any of the 4 of them. Really. Yeah, so you can. It's difficult. It's all about opinion, so you can't really say, oh, you're wrong and this is right. So
I think in that, Volkanovski is getting closer to like being the one. I think he is now, in fairness, because like his level of ability, who he has beaten, how many times he has beaten him, the reign he's on, it's hard. Like he has the finishes of a McGregor, he has kind of the dominance of a Holloway when he was there, and now he's kind of getting on to like, well, how long has he been undefeated in that division? Like Aldo, it's a long time now against the top in the world. So another 2 or 3, maybe another 1 or 2, maybe even for Volkanovski, and I think he will kind of be the guy at 145. But isn't it great that we even can have that discussion? We've had so many great fighters down through the years. It's been epic.
Like his only loss in 10 years is to Makhachev, upper weight. So,
Yeah,
it's pretty phenomenal.
A very close fight, which he could have won. Very, very close. So. Yeah, what a fighter. A joy to watch him. And it's funny because 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, whenever it was, I was like, I hope people understand what they're watching here with Ilia Topuria. What a phenom he is. And imagine the two of them could be fighting next. That, if you want to talk about mouth-watering, unbelievable fucking fights, there we go. Ilia Topuria versus Alexander Volkanovski could be one of the greatest fights we've ever seen. Because
if they make it right now, next.
Oh yes, give it to me.
You think so?
I think
Topuria, another one. To be honest,
are they going to give him Max Holloway? Don't give him Max Holloway. Make that fight.
I don't know. He's unproven at the at the Volkanovski level. Wins over Joy Herbert, Bryce Mitchell, and Josh Emmett are they're good, solid wins. But. From winning a decision over Josh Emmett to being in there with Volkanovski is a pretty big step up.
It is, but the only one.
And if you wait a little bit, he may be a better opponent in the future for Volkanovski.
If you think about it, though, who isn't a big step up to Volkanovski? Max, okay, maybe, but Max is too, as we've seen. Who else?
But this is an even bigger step up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but Yair Rodriguez beat Emmett and he got the title shot off of it, so. We saw. Well, I suppose you could argue we saw how that went, but at the same time, I don't know. I think he's ready. I think he's had a good few fights. Oh, that's a mouth.
Yeah, no, I'd love to see it, but just for Topuria, obviously he wants to get in there and win the title. He probably believes in himself and all that, but he still is only 26. He's only 14 fights deep, and he hasn't stepped up to the very top level or even the step below the very top level yet. So I'd like to, I'd like to see him in there with Volkanovski, but for his chances to win, I think it'd be better to wait a little bit, to be honest.
Maybe. But do you know what? It's a good problem to have. And I can't wait to see it. Let's talk about the co-main event. Brandon Moreno defending his title against Alexandre Pantoja at the flyweight division. How did you score it, Graeme? How did you have it after the 5 rounds are down?
I thought Moreno won. The first round, Pantoja won. That's pretty clear. I don't think anybody's really arguing that. The second round, Moreno won. I don't think that's really arguable either. The third and the fourth, I thought Moreno. I thought Moreno won both of them, to be honest. I know people didn't, but I thought his strikes, his jab and his hooks were much sharper and crisper. He snapped the head back a couple of times, a couple of step-in elbows that were really nice. I think Pantoja was pretty tired. His punches were a bit slow and a bit sloppy compared to Moreno's work. I know he had control time, but he didn't really do much with that in terms of impact of strikes. Yeah, I was surprised, to be honest. I thought Moreno won that either that fifth round could have went either way as well, to be honest. I probably just gave it to Pantoja, but the second, third and fourth I had for Moreno. I was surprised. Yeah,
I wasn't that surprised, to be honest. I definitely wasn't surprised it was a split decision anyway. I agree with you on the first and second, and I'll run through kind of what happened in them in a minute, but I thought 3, 4 and 5 really could have gone either way. 3 especially, that was the manic, insane round that you probably have to watch back about 5 times to even think about who you would score it for. So that was just insane. And in 4 and 5, we'll get into them in a second. They were one of those rounds that one guy was probably doing better, then he was taken down and did what your man did on the ground. Was it enough to take the round? He did land some shots. He, in for submission, bits of submissions and stuff. It was very close, very close.
There was no close submission or anything. It was
no close submissions. But close in terms of the scoring. They're really it's one of those funny fights, right? Because, I scored at 49-46 Pantoja, and if you were to ask me who the better fighter was last night, I'd probably say Moreno. Because it was just...
Well, the first round, though, was the most dominant round, and that was Pantoja, I thought.
He was, yeah, but I'm not going one championship rules here, but if I was, you might be right, but just the general goings of the fight. There was at one stage I was thinking, and maybe it was in the second round or a little bit later, but I was like, Moreno's, they're both kind of landing the same amount of strikes. And like every time the fucking strike stats came up, we forget about strike stats, but like they were even like almost every time they came up. And like you could tell by the fight, the strike stats were kind of even, but it felt like Moreno was landing harder in the middle part.
He was snapping his head back with jabs, and there was a couple of hooks, and there was a couple of step-in elbows that were really nice. Like really, like, I don't know.
But I think that changed though. I think that changed in the fourth round. Like I don't think that was the case in the fourth and fifth round at all. Like I think they were just even, and that's why I gave those rounds to Pantoja, because like the third round I think he was landing hard, but Pantoja was landing hard as well, and that was the madness. The first and the second, when he was able to land Moreno, he was landing harder. He was smashing his head back with those jabs and landing the better shots. But we have to realise the rounds are scored. Fights are scored via the rounds, and it's grand if he did that for 15 minutes, but I don't think, in my opinion, he did that for 25 minutes. Now, not to say he didn't win those rounds, because he absolutely might have, but I didn't think he was landing with the same ferocity in terms of the impact on his shots in rounds 4 and 5, and I think that's why it made it like a little bit closer.
I think you're right. I think Moreno wasn't, but I also think that Pantoja wasn't. I think, he got pretty tired at stages, and his punches became kind of tired. I think a lot of his quote control time, he was actually just like resting, holding on to Moreno, and I don't think that negated the cleaners, jabs and hooks that were snapping the head back on occasion in those rounds. And I think that was the cleanest, sharpest, most impactful work like in those rounds. So that's why I scored them for Moreno. But they were close. It was very close. And Pantoja, I've been a fan of his for a long time. It's great. He did a great job. He stayed in there. You could see that he was tired. You could see that his corner was telling him, no, this is what you work for. You need to go in the fifth round. And, it could have been, the commentators, nobody really knew what score it was. So it could have been coming down to the fifth round. Nobody really knew. And, he put up gave it all he had, put everything out there and left nothing behind, and did enough to get the decision on the judges' scorecard. But I think it was I think it was probably 48-47 for Moreno. With that fifth round was, could have went either way. Like maybe if I watched it back, there could be like one shot either way that would swing it. So I think it could have been a 49-46 as well. I think 48-47 Moreno on first watch was me. I'm going to actually watch it back on silent, but I think I'm pretty confident that I'll still pick Moreno.
Well, just on watching it in silent there, I'm going to run through the fight here, but just a quick word on the commentary. On a great night.
Oh my God. Go on. Hold on, you actually forgot to mention this in the Volkanovski fight. Yeah. He was actually, Daniel Cormier was ruining the fight. He was like some guy, remember he fought some guy who looked like him, and how things can change and all, and it went on for like a minute and a half. Yeah. It was like, what the fuck is going on? Shut the fuck up.
I don't know, did the mics get cut off or what? Because like John Anik was hard to speak then, and then just stopped. I wonder was someone roaring in their ear, or were not like... Cormier was the worst version of the worst Cormier.
Was like, is he talking about Henan Barrow? And he was like, oh yeah, and then he was like, oh no, somebody like that. I was like, oh my God, did you see?
20 literally, I timed it. 20 minutes later, after the fight, they told him in his ear who it was, and then they're like, oh yeah, that's him. It was the most ridiculous thing ever. And also, like the judging chat after this, I need someone to just like write down what Cormier said after, because he just babbled on like.
No, he said that's a terrible scorecard from Ben Cartledge.
Yeah,
all the stuff. He's like, he's a good judge, but that is just terrible. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like,
but not just that, he himself just was like. He was talking about the fourth. He's like, if you scored a fourth for Moreno and then you scored a fifth for Pantoja, how does that make sense? They were the exact same round. It's like, they're not the exact same round, though, are they? They're two completely different fucking rounds. Like, what are you even talking about?
I think he just like looks on Twitter like during the thing and sees people.
Yeah, I think so.
The general consensus.
A lot of people do that.
Graeme, like that's his opinion.
He was. Just I genuinely, and I people don't like me giving out about it, but some people do. But I have to after last night. Like, there's no one in their right mind could have liked Daniel Cormier's commentary last night. Like, you must be a fool if you did. Like, genuinely, Like, genuinely, you must be an idiot.
Epic card going on. Main event is on for the title, and like at the end of a round, between rounds, and the start of the next round, he's just shouting on about, I can't remember who this guy is, and even if I could, the point makes no sense, and it was useless anyway.
Useless rubbish. And it was at the exact time as well that Yair had cut Volkanovski open from the bottom. And I was like, could this change the fight? This is a massive thing. And there's Cormier babbling on.
What's your man's name? He kind of looked like him, and it just shows that things can change.
He was on a run. He was on a great run. He was on an unbelievable run. It's just ridiculous. It was like even Anik and Rogan.
No, it's not that guy.
No, Hindenburg, no. Chad Mendes. Was it Chad Mendes? No, no, Chuck Liddell. No, who could it be? Who's in the crowd? Just turn around. Like, you fucking idiot. Like, oh my God. I'm glad we got that out, Graeme. I think we both needed that, to be honest. Anyway.
It's just like, it took me out of the fight.
It was so bad. It was awful. Anyway, we get back to this fight. I'll just quickly run through the fight in the way I saw it, and if you saw it differently. Like, the first round, it was funny because, on the preview show with Ian and Harold this week, we talked about, like, the changes both lads had made since the first real fight. We forget about the tough one, but, like, Pantoja, apart from his last fight, had been like a more calm fighter, as had Moreno, but his last fight against Perez, Pantoja just came out fast and mad and, early. And that's what he did here as well. He came out fast, but Moreno was landing those jabs lovely, but then Pantoja dropped him hard with that left hand, cut him open. He was on top, but I think for a little bit too long. He maybe gave up a chance there to finish him, but look, in the end it didn't matter. And then he started landing that left hook when he got up, and Brandon landed the jab again, but I don't think it was enough. I think Pantoja won that round. The second round in, Pantoja was still landing, but Moreno was hurting him more, and this was the part I was talking about. Definitely Moreno landing the better type of shots. They kept talking about Pantoja slowing, and like Pantoja was slowing in terms of maybe the damage he was causing, but he was still moving, he was still doing everything, he was still landing as many shots. Like, he just looked like he was slowing maybe more than anything else, but he wasn't on the same level as Moreno in that part of the fight. Moreno was able to get his back. He got in loads of left hooks when the fight was on the feed. Moreno kind of clearly had the more power, and he jabbed out towards the end of the round as well. Pantoja landed one hard shot late, but I don't think it was enough. I think it was 1-1 at that stage, and I think most people agreed with that. And then we had this madness of the third round. My notes are all over the place here, but like Moreno landed an elbow. Pantoja got his back in the clinch and takes him down. There was a head and arm choke on, but not really. He took the back for a couple of minutes, and like he did land some good stuff there. That he win for submission, didn't get it. Moreno landed on.
Did he land some good stuff there when he had the back? I don't think he really did. Not low. It was more just kind of trying to open up something than landing big shots, I thought.
Yeah. Moreno landed on top, but they got up immediately. He didn't land much there. Moreno didn't land a nice head kick, landed nice body shots, but another takedown from Pantoja. Moreno went for the omoplata, got up. Great elbows late from Pantoja, I think. And like at the end of that round, there was some good ground and pound as well. I usually write down what my score is, and I have like 2 question marks after this. I ended up giving it to Pantoja for 39-46, but I really don't know. I honestly, I could not decide. I couldn't decide after that one. It was such a close round. And like, if you're basing your card on that round and you're like definitive, well, I don't know what the fuck you were watching because it was different to what I was watching anyway. Round 4, boat landing early. Moreno elbow as he was taken down. Moreno got up, he got a takedown again. And to me, like, Pantoja, he was just like a little bit ahead here, and went for the arm triangle again, didn't get it. Moreno landed on top, and he got a nice elbow late. But for me, I didn't think it was enough. Now all 3 judges disagreed with me, but anyway, another close round again. Round 5, similar enough sort of thing as well. Moreno, I thought, was a little bit better though in this round early, but then Pantoja got that takedown with 2 minutes left, got on the back, landed a few shots, I think a big part of this was he made Moreno defend with his hands an awful lot. And that's, whenever you speak to judges, they'll always say, like, talk about effective grappling and all this. He wasn't getting in a submission, but he had his back while he was standing up. He couldn't get out, and he was forcing Moreno to defend constantly by holding, getting 2-on-1 or getting his arms in under. And I don't know, I think like that matters if we're talking about effective grappling. If we're talking about not going too far in terms of striking over grappling, I do think that matters a little bit. So
when somebody's on the back like that against the cage, I always think that it's actually really hard for the guy who's holding the body triangle in a situation like that. And when the guy's when Moreno's kind of leaning Pantoja against the cage, I don't know. Maybe that's just a difference of opinion about how effective that position is for the person on the back. But I don't think it's that effective. I've seen it a lot of times, and a good jiu-jitsu guy isn't going to be in much trouble there, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, that is fair, but having said that, he's still forcing him to defend. Now, it doesn't score loads or anything like that. I'm not saying that was the difference in the round. Like, what I would say would be the difference in the round was, like, the little left hands he was landing from the back. He landed maybe, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 of them. I mean, they weren't big, they weren't massive or anything, but, like, I thought Moreno was a little bit ahead on the feet. And, like, if he's 2 minutes of domination from Pantoja in terms of position with shots and with him trying to submit someone, now not being successful there, I don't know, is that enough for a relatively even round in the fifth? You can argue either way. Like, I
can actually see that both ways, and maybe because I had it Moreno up 3-1 going into that round, it it doesn't matter as much which way you score it. So I kind of was like, oh, that round could go either way. But I can see why you give that to Pantoja. There's moments there where you can, like you just described there, and it just depends how much weight you're putting into the strikes Moreno's landing, and he was more tired and more sloppy in that round. So than in the previous 3. So yeah, I can see that round going either way. I can see the argument for Pantoja, absolutely.
Yeah, and look, again, it's one of those that people will get mad about the judging no matter what happens. So this was a split decision. Obviously, Ben Carlich had it 49-46 Moreno. Like, can you see 49-46 Moreno? I can.
Yeah. If for me, if I scored a fifth round, which I say is a coin toss round, if I score that for Moreno, then I have the same card as Ben. So I don't see.
Oh, so you the third and fourth for Moreno as well. Oh yeah, okay. Well, yeah, that makes sense. Like, yeah. So that's like we disagree on possible 3 rounds there, like nearly, because I had a
we're disagreeing about tiny, how much impact there was in the jab and the hooks and the elbows. Were they enough to negate the kind of rabbit punches or the odd good punch from a dominant grappling position? It's really, it was a close fight and close rounds, especially in the third and fourth, I think. Yeah, and the fifth, obviously, as we discussed. So
I think this is a good example as well of I don't think there's any scoring system out there that can make rounds 3, 4, or 5 obvious. Like, there's really nothing there. Like, they were just so close. Like, what do you want? They're like, maybe we could have given them all 10-10s and, round 1 and 2 were split and it would have been a draw. Maybe, maybe that's what people want. But and obviously I'm not advocating for that. I'm not saying that would be right in the scoring criteria. But if we're looking for a different way to pick a winner and you want like a more clear way or a more definitive way, that would be it, right? Because all in all, that fight's a draw. It's hard to look at that fight in totality and go, well, Moreno I think was a little bit better, but very even.
But the first round had the most damage, and that was Pantoja. Yeah. So,
but if that was a soccer match, right, and that'd be a draw. It's what it's. I don't know. It's just one of those. Yeah. You're right. As you said, the first round Pantoja. Yeah, Pantoja caused the most damage, and you scored it 4-1 for Moreno. That's what we have in MMA.
It wasn't quite enough for a 10-8. So that's kind of the flaw in the MMA 10-9 system, where a razor close round like the fifth, the fourth, or the third is 10-9, and that's why people kind of think, oh, this guy got screwed or whatever. But that's everybody knows the criteria. Well, everybody should know the criteria. I don't know how many fighters actually do by the looks of things, but everybody should know the rules and the criteria.
But even the first round, like Moreno was landing lovely jabs before that, and at the end he was landing lovely. It wasn't a 10-8.
Like in boxing, if you get stunned or you get knocked down, it kind of becomes a 10-8. So maybe people are kind of conditioned to that a bit as well.
Explainable, I suppose. Yeah, but either way, it was a great fight, an absolute epic, down for our fight of the year. It was brilliant, and like, even though Pantoja has now beaten him 2 to 3 times, 2.5 times, I'd be up for a rematch. Like, I think it probably makes sense to make that.
I was going to say that, but like, I think, I'd be up for it as well. But I think the fact that Moreno's been in so many kind of rematches and trilogies and all that stuff, maybe they won't go that way. Maybe they'll say, Pantoja offers this kind of fresh title matchups, and we'll kind of stick with that. And if Moreno beats the contenders, then fair enough, we'll put him back in there.
Yeah, like Moreno does seem to be a star as well. From like, look at the reaction. I don't think there's any other champion that gets the reaction consistently that Moreno does. It's massive, and like, if they're going back to Mexico and stuff like that, they could have him there. But we'll see on that. I personally I think as well, because Pantoja, he's you're a big fan of him. I'm a big fan of him. We've known him for years. He's not the biggest name, maybe for the for the casuals or whatever. Maybe if you beat Moreno twice, he would be even bigger, and maybe if Moreno wins, they can have a trilogy or whatever. Another quadrilogy for Brandon Moreno up and coming. But look, whatever option they take, I don't think there's a bad one.
Yeah. If Cormier wanted to call out some scorecard or some judge, Adelaide Bird, given the
Dan Hooker
third round and given the fight to Turner, just unbelievable. What the hell is going on? If you want to talk about egregious judging,
very bad.
We'll talk about some in PFL as well, in my opinion, later. But like, this third round, oh my God, what the hell is going on? Yeah,
let's while we're on that, so let's quickly talk about that, and we'll get back to the Robert Whittaker one. Round 1, Turner kind of picking him off, but I thought Hooker was landing. The commentators were just ignoring Hooker's landing as well. Like, and as someone who was, said pick Turner, and I think he was in one of my bets even as well. Like, I was like, Jesus, lads, here you're kind of ignoring this. Round 2 was the same, but it changed very quickly, and Hooker nearly finished him, went absolutely berserk. And in round 3, Hooker was hurting him over and over. Turner got a takedown, but Hooker got up, nearly finished him, spent the last 2 minutes on top. Somehow Adelaide Bird gave round 3 to Turner. Like, when we're talking about bad cards, right? Or bad rounds, like the right guy won this. Hooker won the fight, and it was a close fight, because that second round was close, to be honest. Now, if you had given Turner round 1 or round 2, no complaints at all, but to give him round 3 was. Can you remember a more ridiculously scored round? There was a Calvin Kattar fight. I think Kattar Emmett, round 4. I think there was one really bad round in there. It was round 4, I think. But this is way worse. Like, I think this is the worst scored round in the last 4 or 5 years, Graeme. It must be up there, mustn't it?
My memory is pretty bad when it comes to, like, you remember when the fight goes the wrong way, the overall fight goes the wrong way, but when there's one judge that kind of just has a bizarre card, it's easy for me anyway to forget. But yeah, it's pretty fucking bad, to be honest. Yeah, it's really bad.
But all in all, what a fucking performance by Hooker! What a comeback! Like, Turner missed weight, and he looked. And
apparently, Hooker has a broken arm or some kind of
he did. He
injury. Jesus,
broke his wrist. Unbelievable. In the second round too. So,
unbelievable.
Yeah, to smash him in the third round was.
Imagine he'd come through that and put on the performance he did in the second and third, especially, and had lost the fight due to if anybody had agreed with Adelaide Bird, like, that would have been a robbery. But
I don't know what it would have been, because the first and second, like, could have gone to Turner, like, but if it had been
second, that way, I don't know, but the second was close. But I think Hooker landed the more impactful strikes, I think, pretty clearly, to be honest. Yeah,
what a performance on Hooker, but like, as you said, Turner missed weight, kind of. Had the fight in his hands, gave it away. It wasn't great by Turner. Not a great sign for Turner to have. In recent fights there haven't been, many great signs. But yeah, I think we'll maybe have to start reevaluating him as a prospect. But like, he can still obviously find his way back there. But great stuff from Hooker and an absolutely unbelievable win there for him. Let's talk about the Robert Whittaker fight against Dricus du Plessis. This was a mad one. Whittaker was ahead in round one early, and then about 40 seconds in, there was a massive head and arm throw, which we don't see in men's MMA that often, and a huge elbow cut Robert Whittaker from there, and I think that kind of did change the fight a little bit, and du Plessis was landing shots. Do you know what?
Did you actually think du Plessis looked nervous early? I thought early on he was reacting way too. He was overreacting to everything.
He does fight a little bit like that, but I
know, but more than usual. Yeah. I think when he got on top and when he got a bit of joy with the elbow and stuff, he kind of grew into the fight, became more confident. And Whittaker, obviously, I don't know if it was a bad day at the office. I nearly picked du Plessis, but ended up not picking him. But I had a sneaky feeling, as I said on the podcast, that du Plessis was going to win this. I think Robert Whittaker is just, the game has passed him by a little bit and he hasn't been improving. And, this was a bad loss, a very bad performance. Maybe he can bounce back, maybe it was just a bad day at the office, but I fear that he's his best days are behind him.
Yeah, look, I said in the preview show this week as well that Robert Whittaker's been in there a long time against a lot of fights with a lot of injuries as well. You can't keep going forever. Now,
big injuries, like knee injuries and stuff as well. Not just not just small not small, but like not just ones that can heal perfectly. Ones that might kind of hinder you for a long time.
But I do think that played a part. But I think a bigger issue here was, do you know what's funny? Like, we see this in all sports, but I think Robert Whittaker actually fights better against better fighters. I actually think the fact that du Plessis was like a little bit janky in there didn't help Robert Whittaker. It was almost like he was fighting himself a little bit. Because what Whittaker is brilliant at is kind of using his cardio, using his bravery, using his tactics to beat lads who maybe he shouldn't beat, and when it is a lad he should beat and who he should have the tactical and technical one up on, it's a bit of a struggle. Now, obviously he's done that in the past, but here specifically. And I think du Plessis was very smart as well. He said afterwards he came out in southpaw, and you could see that, and he knocked him out, or knocked him down, even rocked him with the southpaw jab. And I think part of that was to break the rhythm of Whittaker, because Whittaker's a real rhythm fighter, and that's why he was able to beat Yoel Romero and others like that, because of that. And that was really smart, honestly, from du Plessis. As I said, landed that southpaw jab, hurt him and finished him. Would he have been finished by a shot like that before Robert Whittaker? I don't think so. It's and once that starts happening in your career, it's a fast track to nowhere, really. So it wasn't great time. Now, as you said, Graeme, maybe it's a bad night at the office. Maybe he'll come back, but it's hard. Like, I don't want to say anything bad about Robert Whittaker. I don't like to say anything bad about any fighter, but there was not good signs there. All credit to du Plessis. Like, he went in there and he was smart, landed the shots that needed to be landed, was brave to land them, and deserved his win. But I think it'd be, wrong to say that Whittaker looked great, but we had Israel Adesanya stare down then afterwards with du Plessis. I was calling for it. Maybe after it happened, maybe it wasn't so much. It was so weird, right? Because, like, I thought Adesanya was going to start crying at one stage with emotion, and then like he was roaring, words that we can't repeat.
When he was standing there in the crowd afterwards, was it when they zoomed in on him? He thought he was going to cry.
No, when they were staring down, he got real emotional and all. And then du Plessis was kind of the same. He was and then he was like, "Come on, let's stare down." And then du Plessis walked away. I'm like, I'm not sure, is that du Plessis taking control, or is him kind of like backing down to him, whatever. I don't know.
I think du Plessis was like, "Oh, get out of my face." He said something like, "Oh, he's acting the clown" or something afterwards. Yeah. So he's just like, "You're ruining my moment." It's the biggest win in du Plessis' career, and he probably didn't envision it like with this guy screaming all these profanities and other whatever you'd call these things. He was screaming at him. So maybe that was that, but maybe I don't know. But either way, I think Adesanya, versus du Plessis, there may be, in the build-up, there may be things said that there already has been things said.
Did you hear Dana White? John Morgan asked him, what about the racial undertones and that? And he's like, what racial undertones? No sense of irony. This one guy was roaring the N-word multiple times in a white South African's face. What racial undertones?
Talking about DNA tests and what was he calling it? He was calling it wrong for what's the name of the
23andMe or something? He called it 26andMe. I think he called it 32
I don't know what it's called, but I knew it was wrong when he was saying it.
Yeah.
No selling it like
it was terrible.
The pro wrestling is part of the brand now, so he's no selling the quote racial undertones.
Look, it was bad, to be fair. No, to be right.
They're going to fight now. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a lot of this. Like, strap yourself in and just
to be fair,
try not to take it all too seriously.
To be fair, right. When Duplessis started saying this a couple of fights ago, I remember I came on here and goes, look, from an Irish point of view, we can understand this, right? Because we know there's lots of Irish Americans, but he knows exactly what he's saying.
He actually didn't mention race.
That's what I was going to say. He has stopped doing that. Like, he did it a few fights ago, and he shouldn't have done it. And we said
I don't think he did it a few fights ago. I think he actually was like misquoted, and people were like asking him questions as if he'd said that, but he hadn't. He just talked about actual living there and being there, and like Connor would talk about Joe Duffy being like Canadian Joe, and it's not that big of a serious thing. And it turned into this really serious thing. Like, I don't think he meant it like that, in fairness. I think he's not going to back down from it. He's going to, fight his corner, but I don't actually think that he meant to like start this stuff.
He didn't, but also, if you say about I'm a real African to a black man, what it's going to mean, like let's be honest here. Like, if McGregor says it, like if McGregor was fighting fucking Brennan Ward, right, and he goes, "I'm real Irish, you're just a fake." Look, we'd know. I think
the history of like South Africa and Africa. Yeah, I think
is different.
I retract my. I
take that back.
Strike that from the record.
Strike that from the record.
I insist you withdraw. What's that?
Remember Jim Corrin, your man on the Late Show that time? Withdraw.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
That was hilarious. But another lad. Well, just I won't get into that. But. Yeah, like I wonder. This is the big question. Like I feel like Duplessis has drawn back on that. Now I haven't been listening to him, to be honest, but it feels like he has. I just wonder if he will continue to draw back on that. Because like we know.
I think the cat's out of the bag.
It is in fairness.
I don't think you can
you can't put the toothpaste back into the. Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of stuff said now. I think this is going to get nasty.
Yeah, like from an Irish point of view, I love when lads do that. Like, I love when we call out Americans as fake Irish and stuff like that. But there are no racial undertones is the wrong word. Do you know what the word is? Overtones. There are no racial overtones in this one, though. There kind of are. So, but look, that's MMA. Look, we had Sean Strickland last week. We've that this week, and these things happen in MMA.
UFC superstar Sean Strickland on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Oh, I didn't see it. No, did you? How bad was it?
I didn't see the whole thing, but I saw some people that clipped some stuff up. I have to go and watch it just to get the more context. But it looked like a bit of a train wreck, to be honest.
Jesus, I don't have enough brain power to lose to fucking watch that. Jesus Christ, no way.
In fairness, it sounds like some fucked up stuff happened in his childhood. That was kind of a lot of really fucked up stuff, if you can believe it.
Actually, I turned. Do you know they had like this UFC X? They had like a live podcast, right? And I just turned it on literally for 5 seconds, and there was that cut man. I'm not sure what his name was, but like Chris Curtis was on, and he was talking. Chris Curtis brought up Sean Strickland, and the cut man just goes, "That guy was definitely touched when he was a child." I'm like, do you know you're live here? Like, what the fuck is going on here? I don't know. This International Fight Week and putting people in front of a microphone and stuff is probably not the best idea, to be honest, for the UFC. But yeah, anyway. We'll be 5 hours getting through this, so we'll have to go through it a little bit. We need to talk about Bo and Robbie Lawler for a second, but just to run through the undercard quickly here. Unanimous decision for Esteban Rivas, which is a good fight against Camuela Cork. Bo looked pretty good. Jesus Aguilar got one of those quick knockouts, 17 seconds with an overhand right. Beautiful knockout there, as did Cameron Simon in the first round against Terence Mitchell. Our boy Caelan Loughran calling him out. Let's make it happen, lads. Let's make it happen. Vitor Petrino, an absolute Adonis of a man, goes in there and knocks out Marcin Prachniau, whose names are basically the exact same.
It was an arm triangle, wasn't it?
Sorry, arm triangle. Yeah, submitted him, finished him. Submission as well for Alonzo Minifield with the guillotine against Jimmy Crute. And Denise Gomez knocked out in 20 seconds Yasmin Jagurai. Now, funny for Irish MMA, Denise Gomez fought Bruna Brazil in her last fight and hadn't even enough fight with her, and Bruna Brazil is fighting Shauna Bannon coming up here. So, if we do a bit of MMA maths there, you would think, did Gomez knock someone out in 20 minutes and 20 seconds and win 15 minutes? Someone last time, they're probably not a bad fighter, so interesting.
Well, she finised Bruna Brazil with a right hook.
She did actually in the second round, was it? Yeah, second round, sorry, yeah. It was another fight I was thinking of. But still, maybe my point is actually bad there now, so never mind. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
We're withdrawing.
I withdraw again. I also withdraw that point. That's 2 withdrawals. write them down, but strike them.
Keep account of these withdrawals, so we can't get clipped up. And we need to have our withdrawals ready.
And in the description, we need to have a list of withdrawals. Tatsuya Tiara. He almost got finished here at one stage, but he came back and he beat not come back. He did win the fight against Edgar Charez, and Harry Powell's a boy keeps going. And then we'd Bo and Robbie Lawler. First of all, on Bo, Vad Woodburn obviously took this in short notice after Bo's opponent fell out. And he went out there and he threw his fucking shot at Bo. And he got clipped himself and finished. But Bo looked very good at picking him off, landing the one shot and getting his head back out, which was a great sign. Like anyone
fluid on the feet,
did, yeah. Like anyone can land one shot and knock a guy out, or one shot and hurt him, and then land. But it wasn't that. As I said, fluid was a very good word. Defensively fluid. Just picking that one shot. Sometimes as well, lads in that situation are more inclined to throw, 1, 2, 3s. I'm watching next week, there's one championship card coming up, and Gary Tonan's on, obviously the jiu-jitsu guy, and he's more of that. He's throwing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shots in combos and doing the right thing and all, I suppose technically, but tactically, Bo Nickel landing that big one shot was vicious. He's power, we all know he's wrestling. Jesus, do you know what? It's time to get excited about Bo Nickel, as much as I'm like, sure, Jesus, if the American wrestlers were brought down a peg or two, wouldn't that be all right too? But no, I think I'm team. I'm starting to believe
a lot more than just a wrestler. Obviously, he has that to fall back on or to hit that base, but he looks to be so far, obviously he's going to have to make step ups, but so far he looks like a well-rounded martial artist, and 5 fights in, change of opponent, could have got to somebody, but no, he took it in the stride. As you said, Woodburn came out there and tried to make something happen. He wasn't afraid. He went out there to try and win, and Bo Nickel's just on another level, and obviously he'll have to step up levels, and hopefully he gets the right matchups, and he's definitely a huge prospect. But all that said, obviously Woodburn coming in on short notice isn't exactly a stellar opponent, but for what he had in front of him, flawless really from Bo Nickel again.
Yeah, I think they'll probably try to put the Treshan Gore fight back on. That seems to kind of be the MO of him lately, and it wouldn't be a bad fight, I don't think. But I don't think there's far you can go with Bo without moving him forward. To be honest, I don't know
if you move him too quick and then he wins against somebody.
Yes, that's a problem. Yeah.
Then where does he go then?
Yeah, but I don't think you get to 10-0 without that move.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah,
so he's too good. So interesting times ahead. And then Robert Glenn Lawler with the 39-second knockout of Nico Price in allegedly his final ever fight. He was almost crying coming into the cage, which was very unlike Robbie Lawler altogether. As I said, went down, knocked him out. Nico Price got I don't know, but Nico Price knocked out in training or something, because like he went down very, very badly here to the last Robbie Lawler shot anyway. But anyway, Robbie Lawler sparked him out
just kind
there.
of grabbed onto him and just ate a bunch of shots. Like it was just I don't know what the plan was there. He was trying to get a space for an elbow, but once you're getting hit repeatedly, just get out of there. Like it was, especially against Bob Lawler. We all know Robbie Lawler has a big power in his hands, especially early, and it's just terrible from Nico Price really, but great for Robbie Lawler on his quote retirement fight.
Fan of the SevereMMA.
Forward to seeing him in there against Jake Paul.
Fan of the SevereMMA podcast. Conor McGregor was basically saying looking forward to his next one now. Offer on Twitter as well. This is one of those ones. He's like,
what was it? Say the line, Bart. Say the line.
He would look too good to retire. Like there's no way Robbie Lawler's going to retire, is there? That montage was amazing. Do you know what?
They kind of put him in a bit of a spotlight with all the crying and
they should have waited until after the speech. But like, it's almost so perfect of a retirement, right? He got the knockout. He's had the championship. He's set for life. The brilliant montage, being a good guy in Nico Price, sailing off into the sunset. It's almost so perfect that he has to fight again.
Does he have, I'm not sure, does he have outside interests? Does he have a gym, or does he have other things to keep him occupied? Like, he's a guy who, since a teenager, has been fighting, This is all this guy knows, potentially, I'm not sure what's going on in his life, if he can kind of, keep himself sane without training and without fighting. So, it's a big problem for all these guys. You go in there, in your quote retirement fight and you lose, you think, I didn't put on the performance, I don't want to go out like that. But when you go in there and you win like that, you think, I can still do it.
I can do it. I'm just as good.
You can see how it gets to their head.
Maybe I have a championship run in me. I just beat Nico Price. He's probably top 20. What if I fight someone top 15?
Maybe the fact that he said the whole camp went terrible, everything went wrong up until the fight. Obviously went right.
What if the next camp goes well?
What?
What if the next camp goes well?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'd expect to see him back in some form. Maybe it'll be a UFC retirement, and he'll turn up in bare knuckle or in celebrity YouTube.
I don't know. Is that his style? What about Robbie Lawler?
Depends what the money is,
Robbie Lawler versus Conor McGregor. That'd be a good comeback fight.
If he's going to come back to the UFC, it would be. Like I actually wanted to see that fight. I actually talked with Sean Shelby about that fight years ago when Robbie Lawler was the welterweight champion. And
what did he say?
Sean Shelby thought that Conor would knock him out.
Ooh, that could make headlines now, Graeme. That could make.
Then Conor ended up losing to Diaz a couple of days after I was talking to Sean Shelby about that, so it never ended up happening. What does Sean Shelby know? No, but obviously he styles make fights and all that. But yeah, Robbie Lawler, obviously, as Daniel Cormier said, a middling Bellator middleweight.
Strikeforce. That was
Strikeforce. Sorry.
Did he misspeak there, or do you reckon he didn't know he was in the UFC since he was like 19? Because
I don't know. With Daniel Cormier, you don't know.
No. It did sound like he thought he was like one of the people who came over from Strikeforce. Like Cormier, famously.
You think
knows
sometimes Cormier
MMA.
says things he doesn't mean, and then won't kind of tries to justify it because he's already said it. He's kind of said something.
Yeah, definitely. But also,
I think that happens a lot.
He also started watching MMA probably about 2 years after he started fighting in it. Cormier doesn't have a clue. Remember that time he didn't know about the Shogun t-shirt, the famous show. He knows very little about MMA. He just, it wouldn't surprise me. Anyway, but what a career. We're probably going to do a career retrospective on Robbie Lawler at some stage. An epic career and a legend.
Yeah, but in fairness to Cormier, in a way, when he was in Strikeforce, he seemed to have lost all motivation.
Yeah, maybe he meant that. It didn't sound like it, but yeah, maybe he meant that.
And Robbie Lawler, in fairness to him, he made a massive career comeback and, got to amazing, like memorable, historic fight against Rory McDonald, and captured the title, and just like a phenomenal career. A guy who went out there and tried to finish people. A guy who's tough as nails. Remember that cut where his lip is like half his face is cut up to his nose, like just as hard as nails, and some absolutely brilliant fights. Like even in his loss to Nick Diaz back in the day, that was brilliant, that fight. And he's been involved in this sport the whole time that I've been watching the sport. He's been fighting, and if it is a real retirement, then like a phenomenal career and some moments that will never be forgotten. And hopefully, it would be amazing if he went out with this phenomenal quick KO, and rode off into the sunset. But I've been around long enough in MMA to think that the chances of that are probably slim to none.
Looking forward to his next one. Right, let's move on to the PFL. We're going to run through this pretty quick, apart from the Irish lads. Just some of the results. Francesco Nuzzi, who's a real top prospect, won in the main event with a head kick. Khurshid Kakarov got a win there as well. Greg Eckhout in the 125-pound women's weight class. Ali Taleb, this guy is a massive prospect, and he's definitely a name you need to keep an eye on. 9-0, he is brilliant. Lewis McGrillen Evans got a good win as well. He got the knockout in the second round there in his fight. And that was kind of the main.
Throwing left hooks like a demon.
Indeed.
Lewis McGrillen.
What a night for the Irish, though. We've Andreas Binder actually coming up tonight, so we'll talk about him next week, or the lads might talk about him in the Old Triangle, or maybe the Q&A even this week. So best of luck to him tonight. But 3-0 for the Irish. Unanimous decision win for Dylan Tuke. Unanimous decision win for John Mitchell, and a majority decision win for Franz Malambo. First of all, on Dylan Tuke, Graeme, look phenomenal. Like the first round, maybe doing a bit too much circling, not landing enough, and I think that was part of the plan to frustrate, and it worked. It definitely worked. Yeah. And he landed a couple of big shots, and I think Dylan did, and got out of the way and frustrated. And I think the only real thing that Conor Hughes landed was a hook kick that Dylan was moving away for, and it barely landed. Obviously, it looks fancy and all that, but the impact of it, I don't think was there at all. I thought it was good. Now, to be fair, I think
he was moving away, and the hook kick was not thrown that fast, and it kind of glanced. I didn't think that was enough to, like, the straight left earlier in the round. I thought was a better shot than that from Dylan. I thought that round should have been Dylan's, but
me and all three judges disagreed on that one.
Yeah, I know, but I think the fanciness of I think if a punch had landed with that impact, it wouldn't have swung the round against Dylan. I think it was because it was a fancy looking hook kick that people think it's more than it is.
Yeah,
in terms of impact, but that round was close either way, and I think the second round and the third round, Dylan, had him frustrated, had him a bit more tired, and started mixing in the takedowns and taking the back, and kind of had it easy from there. He was fishing for the choke, but he wasn't risking anything. He played it very smart, very safe. A mature performance from Dylan Tuke, like that we haven't really seen before.
Exactly.
We had a lot of like hopes for Dylan over the years. Like, you look back at his amateur record, the performances he's had there, like beating Paul Hughes the way he did, some of the finishes he's had at amateur and pro are brilliant, but the maturity he showed in this fight was completely different than what we've seen. And like, if he can keep this up, it bodes well. Like, looking at the bracket, I see Dylan doing really well if he can show this maturity and stick to a game plan, and be a complete mixed martial artist. I always remember during that Adam Venture Dylan Tuke fight in Liverpool, he was trying to knock out Adam Venture, and I remember Aisling Daly just screaming over and over again, "You're an MMA fighter! You're an MMA fighter!
Get the stool, Artem! Get the stool!" Was that fight?
No,
it was.
Maybe it was. Yeah, no, I think that was in the UFC. The stool Artem for Paddy, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, actually, yeah.
But the Dylan Tuke was because Dylan ended up taking Adam Venture down and choking him unconscious. But he was, he wasn't fighting with the smarts that to best get the best out of his skills. And in this fight, he did that perfectly.
100%.
Conor Hughes is a 7-0 guy, a dangerous guy on the feet. And Dylan just frustrated him in the first round, as we said. Okay, either way, you can score it either way, but there's no doubt about the second round and the third round. Dylan completely dominated, and Conor Hughes has had no answers for it.
100%. Like, someone texted me during the week and they're like, oh, Dylan Tuke's fighting this weekend. Oh, I remember you used to say he was a top prospect and like, look at him now kind of thing. I'm like, well, you text me again this week. Like, that was a performance of a top prospect. And like I was saying in the Ben show, like, I was like, if Dylan Tuke can produce his best, he can beat any of these prospects. I was like, I don't think he will produce his best. I'm not sure if he can. And do you know what? I've never been so glad to be wrong, because he produced a brilliant performance. As I said, I thought he lost the first, but still, he fought well in the first and he just destroyed him in the second and the third. And like as well, Dylan, he's had a lot of problems and he's done some, bad things outside of the cage as well. He was on the old triangle this week. I saw Barry Ogles be talking about it as well, and he seems very repentant, for things he's done and has turned his life around. And, sometimes it's easy to say things, right? And, the two of us, Graeme, I think we don't take people at face value a lot of the time, because we've heard a lot of people say a lot of things and then what they do is very different. But like, it does feel like Dylan Tuke has turned it around, and like this is maybe a personification of it by how well he fought. And it's easy to write off a young lad or whatever as like, oh, he's a fucking scumbag or he's never going to do anything with his life. But like, it's harder to give someone a chance and let them fucking turn it around and do something good with their life. And hopefully that's it for Dylan Tuke. And hopefully this is like the kickstart to his career again, because by God, does he have the ability,
Yeah, exactly. He definitely has the ability. And I actually don't know what his age is, but I think he's like 25, 26. He may seem older because we've kind of been following him for so many years, but this is a young guy still. And, he just needs to keep his feet on the ground, not let this big win go to his head, or just keep doing what he's doing, keep doing what he was doing in the preparations for this fight, because phenomenal performance, the best of his career by a mile, huge win. Hopefully, give him the confidence and the momentum that he needs. The past is kind of. The past, and 6-3, it doesn't matter what your record is, because you're in the tournament and the fights are laid out. You don't have to worry about getting matched up or people not wanting to fight you because your record isn't good, and you're a lot more dangerous than your record is. You're in the system. You're going through the brackets, and you've got the $100,000 and the European belt or the European Championship in your sights. And if you win that, if any of these guys win that, like win the tournament impressively, I'm sure PFL will be looking to move them into the USA shows. And if you're impressive enough, you're going to end up in $1 million tournament. So the path is there. If he just knuckles down, keeps his head on the ground, keeps doing what he's doing recently, he's a problem for anybody in this bracket. He
needs to stay at 155 as well. He 100% needs to stay. He looks so good. Like in the past, he's had maybe bad issues with the chin and stuff. He didn't look like that at all at any stage here. 155 is his weight class, and I know I think he was talking about to the lads about going down to 145, because that's the weight class they have in PFL, isn't it? If I'm not got mad, but no, I would stay at 155 if I was him. But what a performance! John Mitchell, Graeme, how did this one go? This is in the middle of the Limerick match, and the zone wouldn't allow me to sign back in, but he got a dominant win, I believe.
Yeah, he looked good. Like he basically, his opponent couldn't stop the takedowns, and John played it quite safe. But he had his moments. He got reversed at one stage. I think that was kind of the most trouble he was in. Yeah, he a pretty dominant all-around performance. Easy decision to score, and obviously John Mitchell's moving to 7-1 here. He's in the same tournament. It could end up as an all-Irish final in Ireland, which would be very interesting. John Mitchell has some good wins, like Eric Nolan in his pro debut. He has two wins over Kenny Mulcahy in his last couple of amateur bouts. This guy's a very good fighter, and he's also a problem for anybody in the 55 division in Europe for PFL. So, we all going well. We could be looking at an all-Irish final and an Irish champion, but obviously there's the semi-final to overcome first.
Yeah, massive. Like John Mitchell, he got that setback, and he got submitted, and then he's turned into a grappler since. As well. And I saw a couple of lads talking about it over on Twitter last night. Like, the next person he fights will be thinking, oh, this guy's a wrestler, and then they'll see what kind of hands he has as well. So good win for John Mitchell.
Say, so sometimes the secret ingredient to success is failure.
Indeed, that's true. And I look at the Limerick hurlers, Graeme. We'd fucking 45 years of it. No, we can't stop winning to that. It's brilliant. That's great.
What am I supposed to say? I'm not really into Limerick, but I'm supposed to say like JP what's his name?
Oh no, don't
I can't remember what I'm supposed to say because I'm so out of the loop.
You're the man. Just basically, you're the Man City of hurling. You know, that's what people say. So
perfect. I'll remember that one first.
Yeah, the best team. So in other words, and didn't we have friends, Graeme? I just want to ask you here, friends jumping on guillotines constantly over and over throughout the 15 minutes. How are you?
Telling him since he was an amateur. I don't know. He won't listen to Coach Graeme McDonald.
Remember that one time he caught a guillotine? That just ruined it, like, because he's got to keep on.
That made it even worse. He's like, remember I got that one. Like, how many have you gone for, mate?
But it's been a tough time for France, hasn't it? You know, he's been a few years out now.
Yeah.
Contractual things. There was talks of tough, and finally he gets into PFL and, you know, scraped through this one. Not his best performance. I definitely think he deserved the win, though. But
yeah,
great to see France back in the winning ways.
It's a strange situation as well. You know, you're going in there, your opponent's missed weight, and there's this like rule that if it goes to a decision, it's minus a point if you miss weight, and if it's a draw, then you don't go through to the next round. So that's a bit of a first for France, obviously, and going in there after being out for a long time and all that stuff. He did look rusty. He said that himself straight after in the cage. He looked rusty. It was a bit of a slower performance, a bit more plodding performance from France than we're used to, and you know, he obviously landed some really nice shots in the second round. He had his opponent on wobbly legs or stunned 2 or 3 times, but he just looked a bit, his timing and range didn't look quite what we're used to. You know, if you look even back at any of his recent fights, even the loss to Ricky Bandejas when he got caught, his timing is usually phenomenal. And it just wasn't there, but he still did enough, in the second round to wobble him a couple of times and to reverse positions when he was taken down and things like that. But yeah, he needs to sprawl more instead of going for these guillotines, as I always talk about with France. But the third round, he turned your man into spaghetti, as your man was like coming down from landing from throwing a jumping strike, and France just nailed him and he went down like spaghetti. But France kind of smothered his work or hesitated and didn't step back and give himself the space to finish, and ended up getting taken down, and kind of, it would have been a phenomenal knockout, a highlight. It still is a highlight reel knockdown, but it would have been a phenomenal knockout that maybe he would have got if, he wasn't rusty. But he got the job done. Somehow, one of the judges scored the fight against him. I don't know what the hell was going on yesterday with judging. I don't know. You saw the second round, but France had him on wobbly legs a couple of times at least, and was clearly landing the way more impactful strikes. And I don't know how one judge scored that against him, but luckily the other 2 judges scored it for him, and he advances to the next round.
Indeed, yeah, and great to see all 3 Irish fighters going through to the next round. So brilliant time for Irish MMA. Obviously, we'll have Sean O'Bannon in a couple of weeks, so we'll talk about that next week. Speaking of next week, we're just going to quickly run through these. There's some good fights coming up. The UFC card next week, headlined Holly Holm versus Bueno Silva. Ian and Harry will have a full breakdown for that. You can check that out on our Patreon and the audio, but on YouTube as well if you want to get the video. Norman Dumont, Chelsea Chandler on that card as well. £145 clash in the division that's apparently still going.
A bit of a come down card from last night's card.
Yeah, indeed. Look, there's some good fighters, and I always love watching Tyson Nam, and I know you do too. Alex, I don't know what else is on it. Other stuff. Yeah, grand. The KSW card is actually pretty good. Phil de Vries is defending his title again for like the 57th time, I think. So that should be good. Sebastian Prubska is on the card. Damian Janakovsky is on the card as well. So some good stuff.
Felipe on the card, isn't he?
Felipe is on the card, yeah. He's fighting Christian Kazabowski, who's 10-3 and a good fighter as well. He fought Adrian Bartkovsky last time out, who's 12-0, so they must think a lot of him ended up losing that fight. But he's fought Saldich before as well. Felipe he's had a good run, I suppose, in KSW. He's won 1 and lost 1, before coming back in Cage Legacy, another couple of fights before that. But Felipe always fun to watch, Graeme, isn't he? And a good lad to have in Irish MMA.
Yeah, another guy with loads of talent. If he can kind of put it together, maybe mature. Like if he could kind of maybe stick to a more patient game plan in some of his fights, it might benefit him. But also, you kind of lose that craziness and that kind of unpredictability that maybe has won him a lot of his fights. So maybe striking a balance there. But he has looked very good. Obviously, he lost a decision in his last one, but he had a very good win before that. And he's a guy who maybe another one of those guys who kind of fights to the level of the guy he's fighting. He can definitely take out guys that you maybe wouldn't think he'd be able to, and you might lose to a few guys that you should think he could beat. He's a bit inconsistent in that way, but sometimes guys it can click for them and they can kind of get a bit of momentum going. And I'd love to see that with Stipe. Like he's had a tough time. He's been he's had a few years out of the game after he lost Mbama to Ian Pascu, and since then he's come back, and he's come back stronger. And it'd be interesting to see here. It's a pretty big fight for him. It's this one could go either way. Like I wouldn't this is a very difficult fight to know how it's going to look. And I think if Stipe is going to win, he's probably going to have to get the finish. And but he's shown in the past that he's definitely capable of that.
Indeed, yeah, and looking forward to seeing that. There's a one championship card as well next week. Gary Thun, who I mentioned earlier, he's fighting Shamil Gasanov. That's a really, really good fight. Gasanov 13-0 and a good grappler as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. The former challenger to Demetrius Johnson's title, Yuya Wakamatsu, is coming back after a couple of losses. He's fighting Xie Wei. Walter Goncalves is also making his debut. He's a really good Muay Thai fighter. He's fighting Banma. And there's a big heavyweight fight as well. Amir Ali Akbar could be fighting against the champion Maliakin if he wins against Dustin Johansson. So interesting card there as well on that one. John Jones versus Stipe is happening, Graeme. Myself and Ian did a breaking news podcast over on Patreon on it, so if you want to listen to, I suppose, our initial analysis on that, you can go there. Like, it's a fight. Ariel reported that Francis Ngannou versus Tyson Fury is happening. And
exhibition, is it?
Isn't it? I don't know. Has that been clarified?
Sure. No, I don't know. I haven't been really following it too closely. But
if it's a boxing bout, no problem. Like, let him have it. Let Francis earn all the money.
Even if it was an exhibition. But I heard it was going to be like, I think Eddie Hearn, I might be wrong, it's Eddie Hearn said it's going to be an exhibition with no knockdowns, which makes absolutely no, if that happens, I have no interest.
Oh, it's a mummer's farce if that happens. But Eddie Hearn is also like the other side, like it's his direct opponent who's going to be promoting this. So Eddie Hearn could be saying what Eddie Hearn says, like, but if it is that, I'll have no interest in watching it, like, to be honest. And yeah, but anyway,
if it's an exhibition, if it's not going on official records, but it's an actual boxing match, normal boxing match,
no problem.
I'm interested, very interested.
Sure. We all know who's going to win, but interested anyway. Yeah. But the UFC released Jones versus Stipe, I suppose, to kind of counteract this. I think they were going to release it anyway, probably during the fights. But look, I'm excited for it. We all know, look, Stipe is getting on an age. He hasn't fought in a while, but still, the greatest heavyweight arguably of all time against the greatest light heavyweight of all time, nothing to be sniffed at. I think he'll put up more of a challenge than Cyril Gagne, and honestly, I'm excited. I think Jones will win, but also how good actually is Jones at heavyweight? We didn't really see much of it against Gagne. What was your initial thought, Graeme? Because mine was definitely excitement.
Yeah, mine is excitement. Like, I've been wanting to see John Jones up at heavyweight for I don't know how many years, like a lot of years. And he's up here and, he's fighting the top guys. And, Stipe is obviously a legendary heavyweight. What do they say? The winningest or the longest reigning UFC heavyweight champion. And yeah, I'm definitely really excited. But having said that, I do think this is going to be a very difficult fight for Stipe to win. Especially, he hasn't been fighting regularly, a bit of cage rust going in there against John Jones. Even if John Jones is rusty, he has so many tools. He's just so naturally gifted. It's a really difficult matchup for Stipe, but I'm very excited. These are the fights we want to see. We want to see the best in the world. We want to see people moving up weight. We want to see John Jones, potentially be tested and see how good he actually is and how dominant he actually is. And this is going to, prove that stuff. So yeah, I'm very excited.
Me too. Right, we will leave it there, everyone. A bumper podcast this week. Lots to talk about. And it was, do you know what? was pretty good. So we leave it there. Thanks everyone for listening. If you haven't signed up to Patreon yet, please do help us keep the lights on. The price of a breakfast roll a month. That's all it is. Patreon.com/SevereMMA podcast. Please subscribe if you aren't already here on wherever you're listening, SoundCloud, Podcast Republic, iTunes, Spotify. I know Stitcher's going away actually, so we have no more Stitcher after the next while. So yeah, give us the thumbs up, give us the like, give us the share. Let everyone know. Follow at SevereMMA pod. Follow SevereMMA.com over on Instagram and all that good stuff. Graeme, see us out with your quote of the week.
The war was over and the spirit was broken. The hills were smoking as the men withdrew. We stood on the cliffs, and watched the ships slowly sinking to their rendezvous.
Jeez, that was beautiful. We'll see you next week, lads. Good luck.